A few years ago, I really wanted to become a music producer, but I had no idea where to start. There was a lot of things out there, and none of them really taught me exactly how to get set up. I had heard of MIDI instruments, I knew what a digital audio workstation was, but I just needed help figuring out a way to do that. And today, I'm going to give you the things I wish I had back then. And all of these tools are completely free. So I'm going to walk you through setting up your own MIDI instruments within Reaper using Spitfire audio and labs, all completely free stuff. And you can get started using those instruments, an entire orchestra and beyond, to compose and to learn how to create music right away. Before we jump right in, if you've never heard of a digital audio workstation before, it's essentially your ability to create music using any instrument and orchestrations of so many instruments all by yourself from your computer. It uses the language of music called MIDI and software to turn that into samples that someone else has recorded or digitally generated that create the music for whatever length of note you want, at whatever pitch you want. It is one of the most incredibly powerful tools that you will ever be able to use. And there's an entirely free version that I'm going to show you how to use today. Firstly, you can jump over to labs.spitfireaudio.com, and for either Windows or for Mac, you can download. I've got a PC machine, so I'm going to use Windows, but the process for Mac is, I'm almost certain, very similar. And then jump through, let it all do its thing. Make sure you look at where it's putting these VST plugins, because these can be useful later. All of the things it automatically sets up will probably be perfect for you, but if you need to find these later, make note of especially the VST and VST3, where exactly it's going, because that's going to be important for Reaper to be able to look at all this stuff later on, and that's where it's all going to download. And then jump on through, let it happen, and the magic is ready to begin. Well, not quite yet, but we're getting there. You'll need to create a Spitfire account, which is super simple. Use whatever email you like. Now that you've got your account, we'll jump into the Labs interface. It's pretty sweet. They've updated it all since I was using it. The most important thing you're probably going to want to use is this free tab over here. And these are all the different instruments that you'll have available to you. You've got so many options to choose from, and each one of these has multiple different subcategories of the sound. So this intimate grand piano has 7 different versions inside there that are all more unique in that grand piano sound. And Labs gives you a lot of control over the instrumentation as well, which is so important for producing, because you can control the dynamics, you control the expression, you control the reverb, you control attacks and decays, which if you don't know what any of those are, we'll have to cover that in a future video, but I'd love to teach you about that as well. And once you've downloaded them, you'll have access to be able to play with them, check them out. I absolutely love this whirly sound. This one is one of my favorites. So you can just like load up the instrument. This is what I was talking about. You got your expression and then dynamics. The difference between these two can be quite subtle at first. Essentially, expression is just basic volume, and dynamics changes how it's played. This one's the one that you use more often. And you've got a lot of different stuff here, so you can play around with that sound right away and then start changing things. And let's check it out with, that's more of a tremolo depth. So super fun to just jump in and do all this stuff. Another thing I'd highly recommend getting when you're first starting out is this BBC Symphony Orchestra package, completely for free. You have to do an extra step or two in order to get it. Like you have to give them your email again and then they send it to you. You technically have to like buy it, but they don't charge you anything. They don't even require a credit card, which is nice. And then you have access to so many different instruments, 33 in fact, with a bunch of different ways to even play them, like pizzicato, staccato, which you can find out inside the thing. But they've got so much fun stuff. And this is a taste of what it can do just by itself. I love this thing. I wish I had a fade out on there, but whatever. And we can put all this stuff inside your DAW, digital audio workstation, which we're going to look into REAPER very quickly here. And then you can build away. And when you first hear this amazing symphonic piece that people have created, you're like, oh, I want to be able to do that right away. It'll probably take some time for you to get there, but by no means does that mean you shouldn't keep trying, because you can get there, in fact. And I'd love to show you more of how to do that. REAPER is another thing that you can download for free online. And once you've done that, you'll open it up and see something like this, which can be a little bit intimidating when you're first jumping into it, but I'll show you what you need to know in order to get started. You've got your different views that you can change around. I'm going to get rid of that one just to make it easier on myself. You can either right click and insert a new track, or you can go up to the track and then do the same thing. These are where you'll end up putting all of your MIDI and then playing. It's got its time scale going on here. Currently there's absolutely nothing in there, but you can also record and then start hearing yourself over again, which is fun. And if you want to add a MIDI item, you got to go up here and click New MIDI Item. And then if you double click on that, it'll bring up REAPER's piano MIDI interface. Currently, it's not making any music though. And this confused the hell out of me when I was first starting off. I was like, I don't really know what's going on, what's happening. The reason it's not making any sound is because we haven't told this MIDI how to make sound or what to do. And if you've never heard of MIDI before, it's essentially just the way of music language in a computer. It talks about which note you're playing, and you need to have something else that's reading that information and playing the actual instrumentation from it. So remember when I was talking about making sure you know where your VSTs are going? Inside of our preferences here, we can go in and take a look at the VST inside of plugin options, and then make sure that wherever that path was is inside this path list. So I've got all of the ones that it put installed, and this is something you can do just in case. You'll also notice that there's a lot of nonsense going on here, because when I was first doing this, I had no clue what I was doing, and this is one of the most complicated parts if you're a beginner. But you can add the path up here, and for me, it was going down into my PC, into the local disk, into program files, into common files, and then into this VST3 here for Spitfire audio. So you're probably going to have something similar to that of program files, common files, etc., going through, making sure that that makes it into the path list. If you absolutely cannot get it to work still, make sure that you've hit apply. And occasionally you might also need to restart REAPER in order to get it working properly. But once you've done that, you can finally start using it. And you've gotten through all the complicated stuff. So congratulations. That part drove me mad for probably a week straight. And I feel like I have a good understanding of computers, but sometimes the setting up of this stuff can just be a nightmare. And especially if you don't know what you're doing and you've never done it before. But that VST3 path that I showed you there should work, or at least your version of it. And then you'll be able to jump in and start creating with it. So now we've got not just this MIDI that we can start writing in that REAPER understands, but we can add in the actual labs itself. So if you click on the FX button and add, you can search for labs or go down to the VST3i, which is the instruments, open it up, and then you'll get your very own version of the interface. I find that this bridged version doesn't really make sounds as good by itself. Like there's quite a delay, at least for me, but it is where you end up choosing which instruments you want to make sounds with. So originally I have strings over here, and if I open up REAPER's version of the MIDI, we can hear the strings and we can play with it, but we can also go in here and take a look at the ones that we have available. Let's cue up the whirly. And now you can always close that one out, but we should have a whirly sound instead. And you can use this now to create any sort of instrument. I would recommend naming this the appropriate thing. So if we're using a whirly here, we name it out, and then you can start drawing things in. And this is what you need to do in order to go ahead. And you can also, I've got a couple of videos on beginner music theory and stuff like that. So if you want to jump into even more of how to create MIDI and how to do songs, you can check those out here. But this is everything you need to get started on actually making sounds inside your digital audio workstation. So I hope you start having fun with this and exploring, and you'll create great things, I'm sure. And make sure that you're having fun along the way. And the process for setting it up with your BBC Symphony Orchestra package is very similar. And this one's got all of it in one. You just go for the BBC Symphony Orchestra. It'll pop up. And now you have access to all these lovely different instruments. And not just the regular versions of them, but you can also play them in, this is what I was talking about earlier, pizzicato, which is super fun. And you have so much more freedom, and you still have your abilities to add in your dynamics, your expression, sometimes also reverb as well. So we can add more reverb to this. So it has that like kind of echoey, bigger sound to it. And you've got violins, piccolo, flutes. Take your pick of any different thing. And within a lot of these, they even have different options. So this is such a powerful package that you can have a lot of fun with. And I kind of teased this at the beginning, but I've got a whole symphonic piece created using this, and you can just go ham and have a lot of fun.